Hey, this is Andy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athletic trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. For this story episode, we're talking about one of the most difficult conversations that an athletic trainer has to have.
I feel like this kind of goes along our mental health, and I didn't mean for that to happen.
That's true, it does. It kind of keeps our trend going with the kind of the mental health chat.
Right, and we do talk about, later in the episode, we do talk about how intertwined mental and physical are.
Oh, 100%. Especially when we're like this kind of topic, it goes way beyond just the actual physical ailment. You know, you're really starting to talk about, okay, how does this affect the person? So what exactly are we talking about?
So we were talking about career and season-ending injuries, which luckily we got a few more season-ending than
good.
Career.
That's good.
Which I kind of didn't even really pay attention to this when I was putting together the episode, but I mean, I think we've kind of all had a season-ending injury.
Yes.
And I think just when I put the name to it, I was like, oh, like this is a little bit more rare. But no, like that happens almost every season, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, unfortunately, at least someone is, the likelihood that they're going to have a season-ending injury is pretty high.
Right. Have you ever had any career ending?
I have. Unfortunately, I think I've had two.
What were they?
First one that I had, and both were when I was a grad assistant. I had a thrower. She came in with like some back pain, so I did my eval, and like she complained of a lot of pain going down her leg. So I took the time. I was like, all right, we're gonna check reflexes.
That's pretty in depth.
Yes. Because there was like, she kind of was talking about like some altered sensation. Cause like I tried a quick neuro screen just in case. Mm-hmm. And she said like, oh yeah, like that feels different compared to my other sides. And then that's what I was like, okay, well let's add in the reflexes. And yeah, she had some altered reflexes. They were a little diminished on that side compared to the, non-injured side. Mm-hmm. Sent her to our team physician, and her process was such a long process that it eventually became career ending. But what's kind of really the bummer is, we tried PT, that wasn't working. They did an MRI. Mm-hmm. MRI came back normal.
Oh, wow.
Which is even more frustrating.
Wow.
Another round of PT, that didn't work. I can't remember. I know for sure we sent her to a spine specialist and I think a pain specialist. And
wow.
And I can't remember if they did any injections because, there was nothing on the MRI. So, like, what are you injecting besides maybe the nerve roots? But I can't remember that part. But, yes, essentially she was kind of career ended after that. She never got back.
I think beyond that, like, back pain is something that you deal with outside of sport too.
Absolutely.
And if all those interventions are not working just to get her pain level down, like I can't imagine quality of life.
I think the only thing that even had mild success was acupuncture.
Hey, I just did that
Yes,
today.
you did. I figured that was a good segue. And then I would say the second one that I had, again, it wasn't like right away. I had a cross-country runner with a concussion. Cross-country runner with a concussion. You don't hear that one too often.
Is this the one from weights?
This is this is the one from weights. So safe to say they were screwing around in weights and he hit his head on I think it was like one, like the pull-up bar or like something. He hit his head. And this was a case where, like, when I tell student athletes about how significant a concussion is, like, this kid never complained of a mental health concern in his life and, like, didn't have, like, any issues. Post-concussion, he suffered from continued nausea. He suffered from depression. Like, he got a lot of mental health issues just from this one concussion. I believe it was his first one, too. Like, he didn't have a significant history. And just after that, he just, followed protocol. Everything was to a T, was, handled perfectly. Mm-hmm. And he he couldn't shake the nausea. He couldn't shake, how he felt about being out there, the depression. And he eventually just said, like, running's not for him anymore.
Wow.
And from what I heard, because he kind of made that decision after I was done as a grad assistant, from what I heard, he was doing a lot better after he was no longer running.
Oh, good.
So
good.
It's hard to say, like, oh, did like the concussion cause this? I kind of
might have been like the spark.
Exactly. Because I'm sure there was other stuff on the team that kind of made him get into that position to where the concussion was probably that final straw.
Right. I've had a couple of career ends. I've had a couple of spine boards. If you guys have been listening to the podcast,
yes, you have.
I've spine boarded 3 times already. And 2 of them, one was season ending. Mm-hmm. He had a spinal cord contusion.
Yep.
So he was done for the season. And another one was just a severe concussion with neurological symptoms and a seizure. So he was career ended by the physician, but then ended up going, our team physician, like a year later, they ended up talking and they were like, hey, my kid said, hey, I want to play. And so our team physician said, okay, well, if you can get a neurologist to clear you, you can play. So he played, and then it's too recent to talk about, but there's some other things that he's going to be done. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and it really is.
I think that's kind of my experience with career end, but it's also, you can tell, like, even with these severe injuries, these athletes still, like, really, it's their identity. It's what they want to do. They have passion for it. Yeah.
And like the tough thing with like career end injuries, is obviously they want to keep playing, but it's an injury like that. Not only is it's that bad to where they just cannot, like, they one either should not continue playing or they just physically probably can't. But because of the level of significance that injury probably is, it probably affects them day to day. And now you're not even talking about athletics anymore. Now you're just talking about, like, hey, let's just try and get your life, a higher quality of life, because some of these people, some of these athletes would probably like to have kids one day and would like to be able to play with their kids, and like it's tough if you have a significant injury that could affect that.
I am so thankful for one of my football coaches, actually, there are a couple guys who are trying to hide some concussions from me.
Of course.
And my football coach walked them over to me.
That's
and
awesome.
Said, please check him out for a concussion.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. There were a couple, like probably 3 or 4. I don't remember. But just only one of them I cleared.
Yeah.
And the rest of them were all concussed. And my coach now, he says that he can walk into a place and like not remember where he is or what he's doing.
That's tough.
And it's because of his concussion past.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I don't want these kids to end up like me.
Oh, 100%.
And none of the other coaches get it. I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys are not listening.
Yeah. I mean,
to this guy's reality.
Well, and also, exactly, because it's not their reality.
Right.
So it's something that it's hard to probably imagine how kind of devastating that is until it kind of happens to you.
Right.
Which is the unfortunate part. And plus, too, it's like hearing the CTE stuff.
Yeah.
For some of these guys and the mental distress that they go through just from the significant concussion history.
Right. It's too far away for them to grasp.
Yeah.
For the most part, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, you've also had like significant injuries or significant conditions that have ended a season but not have ended a career.
Yes,
like
that's true.
Your
AVM. Yep. Yeah. I mean, that was a long road for that kid. He did a great job.
Can you explain what that is a little bit?
Yeah. So an AVM is a arteriovenous malformation. So essentially, the circulatory system, right? You have the arteries, they go into capillaries. Capillaries go to the veins. Well, in an AVM, you take out the middleman, so the capillaries are gone, and it's literally just an artery draining into a vein, which veins,
That's bad news.
yeah, veins aren't ready for that smoke. They're not ready for that pressure. So I had a student athlete, and you know, I've said it before, you know, cross country athlete, no history of seizures, nothing like that. Finishes a race, and he normally finished poorly anyway, so I kind of expect him not to look great after a race. You know, I pushed him towards the water table, and I'm walking back to the chute, and all of a sudden I hear my name. I look back, and there he goes, starting to collapse. You know, I run over, grab him, lower him to the ground, and that's when he kind of goes into a seizure. And this seizure lasted, it was a good amount, I would say about a minute and a half.
It was a long time.
And, you know, the worst part is, like, sometimes after a seizure, like, someone can, like, be alert again, and, well, not maybe alert, but be responsive, and they just feel really fatigued and out of it. You know, the student athlete, he was not.
Nope.
He was not responsive to his name. He was only responsive to pain. So, you know, we were lucky to have EMS on site, which
was not very helpful.
they were not very helpful. And then when we kind of got him somewhat stabilized.
Well, it was also, like, to set the scene, these were two, fresh
Yeah, they were
EMTs,
fresh.
And they had, I think whoever their person sending them out was like, you know, you're going to cross country, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were totally freaked out. They put the bag valve mask on upside down.
Yeah, they were shook.
They left their supplies. They were totally freaked out.
Well, and then, like, they couldn't even take the kid because of the type of rig it was, so they needed to wait for another rig to get there just before they left. Oh, it was something else. But anywho, the ER didn't really do much. They just diagnosed him with dehydration, which is kind of a bummer considering.
And didn't do any scan.
No, considering first time seizure. So we got him a follow up with our team physician, and he ordered an MRI, and that's when we found it.
Yeah.
What was
for the season? Although it was kind of near the end, right?
Well, it was the end of the cross country season because that was conference, and he had brain surgery pretty quickly, and then he actually came back to run track conference. So probably, I think that's around the end of October. The injury happened, and he was back running competitively, not quite to the level that he would be expected to, because he was like our top 2 distance runner. He ran at conference in the early May.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad. That was pretty
coming
cool.
back from brain surgery.
Yeah, coming back from brain surgery.
So you want to pick out some listener stories?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we do have another. I put a season ending first.
Okay.
And it's about attitude and how it makes a difference.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So Jenn B said, ACL basketball. It was one of my favorite players. He was a wonderful human being who didn't have a mean bone in his body. Everyone loved him so much because of his giant smile and laugh could change a bad day to a good one. Because of this, everyone associated with the team was so sad. I knew him best, and Coach felt it was best I personally tell him the news. This giant 6'11" kid cried, and I almost cried. But the whole experience made me even closer to him. It was nice when he told me that I was like his mom in the United States, which helped his mom in Senegal feel better about not being here. He had the most positive attitude from the day after the news, and I fully believe that's why it was the best ACL recovery I've ever seen. His healing and progress was like nothing I've ever seen before, and now 11 months out, he's playing at his new school. He's absolutely killing it. The only thing I hate is that I couldn't have been in his first game. Then I would have cried for sure. To elaborate on the positive attitude from the kid and how it affects things, we had a girl have surgery about 3 to 4 weeks before him. Her attitude was very much, oh, poor me, why did this happen to me, and all around just pretty negative. Her healing and progress was so much slower than his, and she had so many setbacks. It was very interesting to see how 2 very different people go through a very similar process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I tell a lot of student athletes, like especially like ACL is, you know, the rehab's pretty straightforward for everybody. Like everyone, like there's no special, like the guys in the NFL aren't necessarily getting a special rehab, you know, than like your high school or anything like that. Like the concepts are the same. The milestones, what you're supposed to hit are the same and everything like that. But a lot of it does come down to that attitude. It's it sucks, but you got to have that like, all right, it's time. Like, this is my focus now.
Mhm.
You know, I got to focus on this rehab. And that's what makes the difference in that timeline. You know, like people get like amazed like a while ago. Man, I feel old calling this a while ago, but like Adrian Peterson, like Adrian Peterson coming back, what I think it was like 6 months post ACL.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, well, what did the Vikings do different? They didn't have a magic sauce.
No.
You know, I mean, obviously he's a professional athlete. That becomes his job, is that rehab. But I'm sure that dedication and the attitude that he had towards it probably made a big difference.
Yeah. Probably.
mean-
I mean, and some luck.
And some luck,
some
of course.
genes.
And also, you know, the amount of resources that they had. And I'm sure he was doing treatment or rehab like 3 times a day. Like all that does make a difference. But same thing, it's that attitude, like the willingness to like, I need to go do this. And like not showing up like, okay, yeah, you can show up for rehab 3 times a day. But if you're going to have like, if you're doing like your straight leg raise, like flopping around, okay, like that's how beneficial is that? Like you have to be like, okay, this is a purposeful rehab.
Right. It's really true. And
Yeah.
and I did put up a question box on our story asking about how, or I mean a slider, how often people are compliant with rehab.
Ooh.
And it looks like most people actually come in more often than not.
That's
when
good.
they have season-ending injuries.
That's good.
It's more on like the rehab daily side
Yeah,
than it
that's
is
awesome.
on the never come in.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. You want to go to the next story?
Yes. This one's by Meghan C. I was a senior in my AT program working with our men's basketball team. The athlete just came back from a PRP injection in his left knee, and my preceptor was with the volleyball team for nationals because it was the overlapping time of fall and winter, which, by the way, that overlap is brutal. That's a tough time.
I think it depends on what your
True.
duties are
That's true. That's true. Fair.
or how many sports you have.
Yeah. Well, if you have a fall and a winter,
Yeah, that sucks.
yeah.
I feel like one of them gets a little neglected.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes sometimes that happens.
It's like, sorry, basketball. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, give me a few weeks after my fall sport's done. Megan continues with, I had another AT step in since I couldn't be there by myself. It was at the end of the athlete's first full practice back, and he went up for a rebound and came down and ended up feeling a pop and had immediate swelling. We sent him to our team doc thinking it was an ACL, and sure enough, his first practice back tore his ACL in his right knee.
Dang.
That's so terrible. It was my first time dealing with a season-ending injury. It's hard to talk them through it, but he had a great support system, and we talked through the importance of that as well, as we are here through the whole process of getting him back and better than ever. We also talked through how he might not see it now, but this is a season of learning for him, learning to be a part of the team from a different perspective, and I think he deeply appreciates it now.
Mm-hmm.
Which this situation's tough. I mean, all ACL injuries are tough, but like I've seen this kind of situation before where that kind of year's going and it just turns into the why am I always hurt?
Yeah.
Like why is this year happening to me?
Uh-huh.
So that's really
it's
hard.
hard not to internalize that.
Oh, 100%. That's hard to break through that.
Mm-hmm. Like, why is everyone else getting a season?
Yeah. What did I do, universe?
Right. What did I do to deserve this?
Yeah.
I had an ACL tear who didn't know what an ACL was
Oh,
and didn't
yep.
know what an ACL tear was
Yep.
and how devastating it is. And that was a really interesting one because it didn't hit him immediately.
Yeah.
He was just like, okay, can I feel pretty good. Can I just like tape and go?
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to walk tomorrow,
Yeah.
actually. So,
And
he was feeling really good the first day, and then it set in the next day.
Yeah.
And then that's when I think it kind of hit him
Yeah.
what we were saying.
Well, that's tough too because you're delaying that grieving process. Like
Yeah.
Like by not like you guys, like him like delaying that grieving process of trying to like
Accept it.
yeah, like he's holding back on the like holding out that hope like no, I'm good. This isn't serious.
Also, like all of his teammates kept coming over to the cart
Yeah.
and they were like high-fiving him and saying good things and like all this stuff, and I think he was like overwhelmed, like what, like
Yeah.
why are they all?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's tough.
it was tough. It was also tough because he was a backup player
Mm-hmm.
and it was his time because
His time to shine.
our first string got hurt.
Yeah.
And so it was his time, and then
Yeah.
and it was non-contact, so even
That's even harder, especially if you don't know like what an ACL is and how significant it is. It's like you sit there and
he's
think
like,
like
he's like I just stepped.
I didn't do anything. Like no one hit me. Nothing happened.
Right.
That's hard.
So this next one's actually really interesting because it's about a life flight.
Oh, okay.
You can read it.
All right, this one's by Anonymous. I've had the usual clavicle fractures, ACL tears, etc. But last football season, one of my sophomore boys walked off the field and ended up having a concussion that started with a bad headache. He deteriorated within 5 minutes into full contracture/respiratory failure. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to life flight him to Portland. I just called 911. Our ambulance came. I work for our local hospital. And as we were getting him loaded, they were calling for life flight. They brought him to the emergency department first to stabilize him. It's scary. You just don't ever want to see that happen to them again or have long-term health consequences because of it. Luckily, he hasn't had anything noticeable or that he has reported long-term so far. This was his second concussion, with the first one being in 8th grade. He played his football season, though, and did amazing.
This football season. Like he's back.
Oh, yep, sorry. He played this football season, though, and did amazing. It took me a long time before I got comfortable with his and his parents' decision to play. He's our quarterback, so thankfully he didn't see too much contact.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
A life flight. Holy smokes.
You know, I was thinking about this because I know some places are more likely to get that. Like I would be very surprised if we had ever have to life flight someone.
Yeah, it really comes into a situation too where if there's a lot of traffic or far distance,
Right.
you know, that's the fastest way.
Right. But that's just like, you know, something's going down when you have to be helicopter.
When the chopper shows up.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oof.
And for the AT dealing with that situation, like that's not an easy situation.
No. Mm-mm. Hope you guys never have to deal with that.
Yeah,
Hope
seriously.
we never have to deal with that.
Knock on wood.
We have a couple of career endings.
All right.
Some with some positive endings. Not as
Okay.
much in this first one, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
This one's anonymous. So they said, I've walked through the permanent disqualification due to concussion with 4 athletes. 3 of them were men's lacrosse and 1 was men's soccer. The first men's lacrosse player chose to be done on his own, but was highly urged by the doc.
Nice and smooth.
Right.
Nice and smooth.
The second men's lacrosse player got rocked so bad that it cracked his helmet. I still have it signed sitting on my desk. He came back for Alumni Day and wanted to play, and we said no. This athlete did not take ending his career well. Ironically, he was the worst athlete out of all 4 of them. He's actually a police officer in New York City now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so still active.
Yeah.
Not playing lacrosse.
No, not playing lacrosse.
The next one was a men's soccer athlete. We went to get donuts after his doctor's appointment because he was so distraught. He said it was exactly what he needed to cheer himself up. Other than wanting donuts, he probably did the best of the 4 in coming to grips with it. And the 4th men's lacrosse athlete was supposed to be the starter for the spring season his senior year.
Oh, no.
Ended up with a concussion in fall ball that ended his career. All were really rough, but are doing amazing post-collegiately. I've definitely found that talking about their future and future goals was very helpful to get up and over the hump of stages of grief. I learned my lesson after that second lacrosse player for sure.
Oh, big time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it definitely helps talking about, like, you know, there is life after athletics.
Yes.
And it's tough when that chapter ends sooner than what you were expecting.
Absolutely.
Because every athlete kind of has that, like, expectation that, like, oh, well, like, after college, like, I mean, you kind of know, like, I'm probably not going to the NBA.
Right.
Or, you know,
Right.
or the NFL. So at some point, you know, like, there might be an end.
Mm-hmm.
But when all of a sudden this pops up, it's like, nope, it's now.
Right.
And it doesn't give you the most time to prepare, even though there's really no preparing for that just phase to end.
Right. I had a baseball player who had a UCL tear, and he was mostly playing because he's played his whole life.
Yeah.
But he still wants to be active. He wants to be a firefighter.
Okay.
So then he was like, you know what? Honestly, like, I did my rehab. I don't know if I want to do the surgery or not, but he's done playing because he's like, it's just too much for him and his career.
Yeah.
And I have another athlete who is ending their career because they want to be a firefighter too.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Actually, a female.
Oh, nice.
She wants to be a firefighter, which is really awesome.
That's awesome. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
And she had a knee injury, so
Oh, okay.
that's a little bit more like
Yeah. You kind of need to
yeah.
take care of that.
Yeah.
All right, this next career end one is by Anonymous. We had a student during COVID that was deadlifting at his house. He started complaining of extreme low back pain that gradually went into numbness. He was diagnosed with a herniated disc and a lateral horn compression in L4, L5. We referred to an outside friend to begin rehabilitation. He was no longer able to play football for his senior year, and we watched him on the sideline for the season in pain, standing on the turf for that many hours, but was constantly in the athletic training room trying to feel better. It got so bad to the point where he was no longer able to stand up straight without feeling pain and was referred for surgery.
Ouch.
He then started coming in to help in the athletic training room and to do his rehab. He was faced with a choice to either help out the football team and become a lineman coach or intern for the athletic training staff. He chose to become an athletic training aide and has furthered himself to start working in sports medicine in a clinic. Now he is studying to become a doctor of sports medicine and has changed his career choice after previously wanting to be a veterinarian. I have seen the lights in his eyes dim to spark so bright and has easily become one of the most intelligent first-year undergrads I've ever come across.
Isn't that a crazy turn
That's
of events?
wild.
Like, from debilitating back pain.
Can't even stand.
Right.
That's that's a good story though.
Mm-hmm.
To see the goals that he has. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then also like, oh, well, if you're going to be in rehab and if you're going to be around this profession so much,
Absolutely.
kind of like opens your eyes to it.
Oh, 100%.
Well, not necessarily this profession, but sports medicine.
Yeah. Hey, and they might have a future team doc there.
Right?
Hey.
He's like, I came from here.
I came from here. I know this life.
So I kind of want to move into once you have a season ending or a career ending, like what people do for management.
Okay. Which is very important because this is what we see every day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we have to balance.
Mm-hmm. So this first one from Anonymous is, I had a player who had an Achilles tendon rupture halfway through the season. Didn't have any offers and was really trying to get some. One of the hardest working athletes I've had. He was a senior and was out for the season. We had talks about what his future was going to look like. He was depressed and out of it. My coworker and I had the idea for him to help out at practice once he was in a boot and could move more. Completely new person afterwards. Now he's planning to go to a community college, but work towards being a coach and a teacher one day. Finding ways to keep them involved can help them stay part of the team and have support from coaches and their teammates.
That's true.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
We have actually a couple about staying involved, which, I mean, is kind of a good, theme.
Yeah. No, 100%. And plus it does help the athletic trainers out a bit, having some extra hands.
Well, I mean, not only that, but also just, being at practice
Yes.
and, being there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the important thing. And the tough thing is it's hard to balance because some athletes don't want to be there because they're like,
It's too much to see.
Yeah, you're at practice, but I mean, you're not at practice, you
Right.
know, and that's the tough thing. And then they get worried that everyone's looking at them, and like, but I do think it's just very important that they stay a part of that team culture and contribute, you know, in whatever way that they can.
Well, I've had an athlete who had an ACL tear, and she was like, you know, honestly, I can either be at practice and just like watching, or I could go work and like make money.
Yeah,
And so for her, it was like, okay, well, why am I wasting my time? Like,
just being there.
right.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, she didn't end up coming back. So that's one thing. I think coaches also like to see that you are invested.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing too, is like what's important to the student athlete or the patient, right? Like, of course, every athlete enjoys their sport and to some degree, but you know, maybe there's some who's like, I kind of like, there's other things that I want to do, and you know, so me, like you said, in that situation, why would I go to practice to stand there and just be there when, hey, I could go, in my mind, be productive doing something else. So yeah, I get it. And that's definitely where some of the motivations come in, and not as like a bad thing, but just what's important to the patient.
Same thing with this one, also from Anonymous. Make them attend practice and still do their rehab while other athletes do their rehab. It's lonely when you're injured physically and emotionally, and not being with their friends and sports family leaves most athletes' sense of self damaged. So I always say, go to practices and maybe try to learn more about what the coach is thinking in the practices. So maybe next season there'll be a mini coach on the field, a
true.
huge asset to their team.
That's true. It's a
You
good
know,
idea.
we say, you know, go get some mental reps,
Yeah.
or like show coach that you're invested.
Yeah.
If you really want to be here.
Hey, if you want to go the extra mile, technically being, you know, watching that, and if they're able to, you know, think about it and visualize what's going on, hey, that'll help activate those motor pathways.
You know, I did a rotation as an athletic training student that was supposed to be observation only. It really wasn't, but like in the beginning, at least, it
Yeah.
was completely observation. And so many people were like, why are you wasting your time when you could be hands-on?
Yeah.
And I always told them, you know, we as athletic training students spend so much time focusing on us and how am I going to be a clinician and how do I figure this out, when we forget that everyone around us has already figured it out.
Yeah.
And we can learn so much from the people who have already
that's true.
figured it out.
That's true.
So instead of me struggling through an eval, which I did, I did enough of those things. It was my final rotation that I split. Half of it was observation and half of it was hands-on. But I took the time to actually watch evaluations of people who had already figured it out.
Yeah.
And that was so valuable. And I think that observation and kind of taking a step back and recognizing that is just like, I can't even put a value to it.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So actually this is our last story.
Okay.
So this is from Audric W, and he was talking about how when you're talking to an athlete, it's actually not about what you say, but actually the space that you give.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
And this is what I was talking about with like how important it is with like mental health and like how it kind of intertwines.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of the themes that he was talking about were very similar to what we've been talking about in our mental health episodes.
So Audric W says, I find it's best not to tell them anything. I found it's important to meet them where they are, making sure they have someone who can sit with them while they are dealing with all the big emotions they are experiencing. By trying to fix and console, you wind up taking away the space meant for them to process the trauma. Because after all, injuries are traumatic both physically and emotionally. Avoiding the urge of trying to pull them out of their feelings is critical. Doing that only invalidates their feelings and doesn't give them the appropriate tools to feel them, express them, and find constructive ways to express them and ultimately heal from them. Now there is space for them to reflect on everything that relates to their injury. why the injury is affecting them the way it is. Is the process of rehab causing anxiety? Are they experiencing shame from being injured as if it was their fault? Are they experiencing guilt from the feelings of letting their team down? How do they relate to their sport now? Do they have an identity outside of their sport? Are they playing because they enjoy it? Are they playing because their parents want them to, or so they don't disappoint a coach or fellow teammates? Understanding these aspects of the mental return to sport is the guiding light to setting appropriate goals and benchmarks, and ultimately what their end game looks like. As healthcare professionals, we might be trying to set goals for us based on outcomes and objective measures we want, but are out of alignment with who they are and what they want. Snaps. That's pretty good. That's a good point.
I thought it really aligned with a lot of the things we've been saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the important thing is, at the end of the day, we are here for them, and we want to try and create that safe space for them, for the patient, the student athlete to express themselves and express what they're feeling.
So we also put this up in a question box on our story. What do you tell someone when they have an injury that ends their season or career? And obviously this doesn't substitute for them having to grieve through their own process.
Of course.
But kind of like, how are you there for them? What is your role?
Yeah.
Especially when it first happens. So some people said, remind them that their worth as a person isn't just as an athlete.
That's true.
So identity more than
Which
just in their sport.
Which is a big one for a lot of student athletes because, the biggest example is anytime they're given the question, tell me about yourself, or in class, right? That first day of class, you always get the icebreaker and who are you? And it's always, I'm this player. I'm this athlete.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even we say it I'm this person and I'm a certified athletic trainer.
Oh yeah. This is my DNA. Doing this job is my DNA.
Yeah, that is obvious.
Yeah. Does that bleed out?
So other people said, good news, your body is already on the path to healing.
Oh, I like that.
Some people talk about how to give space, give them time to grieve, just listen. When they're done, affirm their feelings and comfort.
Oh, I like the one that's talking about controlling the controllable. Mm-hmm. Because especially when you're in especially a season or career-ending injury type of thing, there's so much that's just out of the athlete's control or the patient's control. That hey, small steps. Let's focus on what we can control. And sometimes it's hey, just doing this exercise or coming into rehab, right? That's control. You can control that.
Also, what they said, what you actively put into your rehab and recovery is what you get.
Yep, that's true.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Other than setbacks.
Of course. It's not exactly linear.
It's actually really cool to see the different philosophies of people because some this person said I give them the full story, all possibilities and all routes of care that I'm aware of, along with reassurance.
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to kind of clinical philosophy and also patience. Mm-hmm. Some patients might really like getting the full picture and getting as much information as possible, and some probably might just get overwhelmed by even a little information. So
right. I'm the kind of person who wants the full story, so I feel like I typically try to give the full story, but you do have to take it and figure out
what works for them.
Right, exactly. Another one about their worth isn't in their sport. Mm-hmm. Healing is possible. Answer their questions. Yeah, there's a lot of repetition in those. A lot of repetition is in I'm here for you. Yep. Just reassuring that.
It's a team. We're there every step of the way.
There's a lot of reminding them what they have control over. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of us are on the same page.
Oh, definitely.
But I do like that little element of clinical philosophy.
Oh yeah.
And hearing what other people do.
That is always nice.
Yeah. Do you have any other season ending, career ending tidbits or tips and tricks or?
No, I think that's the biggest thing that I remind the student athletes is, is controlling what they can, and a lot of that comes from the rehab part. They feel kind of like, they can't practice now, they can't play their sport. Like, well, what else am I to do? And, that's why making rehab fun, helps, but also, reminding them that like rehab, especially for like a season or, a season ending injury, is now your practice, right? Like this is just as important as when, you practiced out, like when you didn't have the injury, right? You go to practice so you become a better athlete, you understand the tactics more and like get your skills get better. Well, now your practice is getting back to where, I can do that. So it kind of still keeps them in that athlete frame. It's just now you're not doing it in your sport. You're doing it in, all right, I need to be the rehab athlete.
All right. Well, I think that is all that I had. So if you guys are new, we do every other episode as education or stories. This one was a story episode. So next week we're going back to our education, which varies between interviews, CEU episodes, which, by the way, we do have an update on CEUs. If you missed it, we used to have 5 free CEUs. Now we still have some free CEUs. So our latest episode will be free. And then the 3 before that, I believe, are $1. So very affordable. And then everything prior to that is just regularly priced. And all those profits will go to our partner, Precision AT, as well as
supports the show.
We get supported as well. Woo. So we appreciate that.
Yes.
Also, don't forget, it's December.
It is December. Of
a non-reporting year, but that just means that you have the reporting year is halfway over. The reporting period is halfway over.
In just a few weeks, we are now in a reporting year. Like it's coming.
Yep. So if you guys are looking for something more of a subscription base, we are affiliated with MedBridge. So if you scroll down in the show notes, you can use code ATCorner for $150 off.
Yep.
Your subscription. It's a 1-year subscription. And what else?
Well, it being December, don't forget the BOC fee.
Oh yeah, don't forget.
Don't forget to pay your maintenance fee.
Yes. We're gonna put up in our Facebook group a question of the week. So if you guys want to join that, it's facebook.com/group/ATCornerPodcast. And I don't think I have any other fine print.
Nope, I think that's perfect. Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.